you guys have had a fantastic weekend and that the first week was pretty easy. If you need anything, remember that I'm just an email or phone call away. Don't hesitate to send me any of your messages that you'd like. We're going to start this week off with this video, Flight of the Conchords, Feel Inside, and stuff like that. Hopefully you've watched this and now you're listening to this little screencast. I show this video for a certain reason. At the very beginning, when they go into the school, the first student that they are interviewing, they talk about how, or even before they go into the school, their job is to figure out what the kids are all about and then create a song. The guy tells them that they've been away for a while, and so it could be kind of difficult for them to figure out what students are all about these days. And I think for this class, that's a good thing to start with. You have standards. Hopefully you found them and you know which ones you're going to use. But the way that you teach these standards and the content that you use in your class can be different and vary from teacher to teacher. How you interpret and how you teach is what will make you a great teacher. And I love this song and this film, this little movie, because at the end of it, they create this song with many different styles, many different singers. And I think as teachers, that's what we have to do. We listen to our kids, we find out their interests, their likes, and then we create our curriculum based on that. I do a lot of consulting with schools, and one of the schools I'm working with right now has used a district pacing guide for the past 8 years. What that is they give every teacher the standards, when they're going to teach them, what they're going to teach, week 1, week 2, week 3. And what they found is when you take the creative license away from people and you tell them that this is what you're going to teach and when you're going to teach it, their students have stayed stagnant. They're not moving because there's no teacher discretion involved. The teacher's not creating a curriculum that students like. The teacher is simply being a robot and teaching what the district says. You are the one that will change the students in your classroom. You are the one that will need to make the decisions on how to teach the standards. And so, although you might be handed a curriculum, no matter where you teach or where you go, that says, here's what you're going to teach and when you're going to teach it, I would advise you to not take it so seriously. That as long as you teach all the standards, you are within the law. And there's a bigger purpose to teaching. It's not to be a robot, but it is to take the likes and the strengths of your students and to think about them while you're creating this. And so here's what we're going to do with the first part of this week. I'm going to post this. It'll be open. In fact, you're looking at it now, Monday. Then I'm going to open the next section of the week on Tuesday. So you'll have a lot to do this week, so hang in there, and please, again, let me hear any questions that you guys have. This is your goal this week. It is to create a document that looks like this. There are 36 weeks in the school year, and so you are going to take your standards and chunk them into units. One of the things you're going to need to look at is the verb, identify, locate, identify. Now this is first grade. When you get up into your high school standards, you're going to have a lot of analyze, synthesize, these verbs that are at a much higher level. One of the things I want you to take into consideration is you need to try to disperse those high verbs away from each other. If you have 12 standards in one unit and each of them is analyze, 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 it's going to be really, really hard to teach that many standards to that level in that amount of time. So what you're going to do for this section is you're going to name your units. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. If you're a first or second or kindergarten teacher, these unit names better be creative and fun and engaging. Introductory material for Unit 1 probably isn't really going to get your students that excited about class. Then you're going to look at all of the standards that you guys collected last week, and you're going to start to move them around. It is up to you how you do this. Now, if your school has already given you a pacing guide and you want to use that pacing guide, you're more than welcome to do that. As teachers, many times we borrow. Otherwise, you're not going to have a social life. But if you want to be completely creative and try to see these standards through a new lens and a new perspective, then start from scratch. What standards would you teach with each other, and why would you do that? It's going to allow you to know those standards a little bit better. So you're going to chunk your standards, okay? You're going to figure out how many weeks you want to spend on the standards. Now, again, you have 36 weeks that you need to fill up. And on this sample that I'll post, you should see weeks 1 through 4, 5 through 7, 8 through 11, and it should add up to 36 by the time it's done. If you're a high school teacher, you might just have a semester-long class, and if that's the case, then you'll just have 18 weeks that you'll need to be accountable for. So your goal by Wednesday is to create a document that looks like this. It has a unit name, it has a time frame, and it has the standards all chunked together based on relevancy and looking at the verb. So if you look at this first one, this is a social studies, and so it is all about maps and globes and maps and directional words and maps, and so they're finding these commonalities within the standards that you would want to do. If you're reading and writing, you've got many different standards. If you're doing a reading, the literacy standards, then you need to be accountable for all of them. And a day in a literacy classroom, you might read about something and write about something and talk about something and listen to something. And so I shouldn't see standards over here that say RL, 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 reading for literature, that you guys should know. There should be RL, 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 maybe a writing standard, maybe a speaking and listening standard. And so you want to kind of break those up, because a literacy classroom, you're not just going to read. You're going to read about something, and you're going to talk about it, then you're going to write about it. And so you need to be accountable for that and think about your class in that way. After you do that, or to help you do that, there will also be this depth of knowledge slide. This is for you to kind of figure out what level your standards are. You need to find where your verb falls, and it will either be a level 1, a level 2, a level 3, or level 4. You might highlight your standards. Maybe level 1's blue, level 2's yellow, level 3's purple, level 4's red, however you want to do it, so that when you're chunking your standards, you can kind of color code them and know where they fall within the levels. That might be helpful to you. It was helpful for me, because you don't want level 4, tons of level 4's in one standard. So this depth of knowledge is for you to look at the verb in your standard and then figure out, is it a level 1 standard, a level 2, a level 3, or a level 4. If you can't find your verb in this wheel, then you're just going to have to classify. Which ones do they look like? Which ones do they match up with? Is it close to classify? Is a synonym for it maybe assess? And that's the way that you would do that. Also, at the very bottom, it kind of shows you and tells you about the level 1, 2, 3, and 4 activities that you would have to assign with those levels in order to reach them. So it could be beneficial for you to look at that also. So again, your job is to create a document that is going to look like this, with all of your standards accounted for, with all of the weeks accounted for, and with unit names. That's your goal by Wednesday. If you have any questions at all, please